The ants and the grasshopper. There's a time for work and there's a time for play. Somewhere in the forest long ago, there lived a grasshopper who loved to sing and dance. All the other bugs loved to see him dance and play his songs too, especially when they had time to play. Then one day, the grasshopper passed a long line of working ants. Surprised by their hard work, the grasshopper stopped. "My friends, what's the matter? Why do you work so hard during the lovely summer?" the grasshopper asked, and most of the ants continued their work, but some of them stopped to answer. "We must work because in the winter it will be difficult to find food," one ant answered. "You should do the same, Mr. Grasshopper," another ant said. "Or you will starve," another ant warned, but the grasshopper just laughed. "But we have all summer to gather food," the grasshopper replied, and continued to play his violin. The ants looked at each other and shrugged. They did try to tell him, but the grasshopper decided not to listen. So all summer, the ants worked hard to store food in their nest, while the grasshopper continued to sing and dance. Countless times, the ants tried to warn the grasshopper that the weather was starting to cool, but the same answer was heard. "But we have all summer to gather food," the grasshopper repeated again and again, until finally the first snow started to fall. It was a terribly cold day, and once the grasshopper stopped playing his violin and looked around, he noticed that all his friends were gone. He hopped around the short grass, small grass, up into the trees and down below, but could not find any bugs. He had played all through the warm season. Days passed without a friend or even food, and the lonely grasshopper was beginning to perish. He was no longer able to keep the cold away and stay warm, so he found a small bush to hide in. Then one day he heard some ants come by, and the grasshopper called out to them, "My friends, please help me. I have not eaten since the winter started, and I know that you have stored food for the winter. Can you please give me some?" The grasshopper begged, and the ants looked at each other. "Mr. Grasshopper, we warned you all summer that you should prepare for the winter," one ant replied. "And you always replied, 'But we have all summer to gather food,'" the other ant said. "You should have done the same because there is a time for work and there's a time for play, but you have spent far too long on play," the wise ant said, and the ants all walked away from the grasshopper and they never saw him again.